And I think it's really, I think that this one is so fascinating because I know you and I talked about our relationship, and there's things that happen in life that get to show you what you believe.
Oh,
you know,
yeah.
it may be real, it's an interesting thing to say, what do I believe? But I think where you see what you believe is when you have something in your life that really gets your attention. And I know we had talked about, when Janet arrived, I thought I'd healed a lot of things around my sister. I've talked a lot about that, and that, you know, she was better than I was, or I compared myself. And so I saw myself a lot as comparison rather than the unique soul that I am. And so when Janet arrived, I could feel that all that stuff coming up again, and I had to go in and say, Janet, I got this story about us. And it was such a healing moment to see that I was still believing some of this stuff, that you know, I needed to be better than or less than or whatever my story was. And then you were just like, oh, you're great just the way you are, and please don't put me on a pedestal, and all the things that we were able to heal by my looking at what I was believing. And today I believe that we're in co-partnership, and that really to me is such a greater belief than somehow I need to be, you know, in opposition or competition or whatever that would be.
Well, I thought it was so great because this is a perfect example. So when I came in and Heidi started telling me, you know, you represent my sister to me. And I thought, that is so great. How many times have we had people in our lives that it has nothing to do with them, but it has a lot to do with somebody that they look like, or they remind us of, or somebody we had a good experience of, or somebody we had a bad experience with?
Anybody ever had that, or is it just me?
You know, I told the story last week that there was this girl that had come into my life that ended up I did not have a good outcome with her. And she drove a Subaru, and because of that, I hate Subarus. So our belief systems can get a little murky, and I was so glad, Heidi, that you and I were able to look at it, and you were able to talk about it so eloquently, and then I could really share what was going on with me as well. So this practicing, and I really feel like Heidi and I got a chance to mastermind with each other because we were able to inspire each other to be even better than we thought we could be. I really felt like I got that from you.
Absolutely. I always tell Janet, I say, this is one of the most powerful relationships I have because it has brought up some of those really deep things I wanted to heal. And so that's really this idea of the things that happen in your life, really, oh gosh, I still am holding a belief that is not powerful for me. So,
and I think that that's a good example too. It's simple, but it's not easy. So think about this person, who this person might be that you would have be your mastermind partner. Think about who that person might be. I thought I'd share that I had the honor of having Judith Cady as my mastermind partner. Some of you remember Judith. She was the youth director here for many, many years. And Judith was just the most positive, inspirational, encouraging person I've ever met in my life. And so I thought, oh my gosh, just what a wonderful thing. I get to have Judith Cady as my mastermind partner. So in masterminding, you have your little card that has the little 7 steps on it, and you with your partner decide each week or each month, whatever works for you, you're going to get together at an assigned time, and you're going to share these steps with each other. And so initially I was so excited to have Judith as my partner. And Judith, for those of you who know Judith, boy, she was about getting things done. If she said she was going to be here at 5 o'clock, she's going to be here at 5 o'clock. So at the time, I had a job where I was working a lot of hours. So we decided at 6 o'clock every Wednesday, we were going to mastermind together. So I'd like to tell you that every Wednesday at 6 o'clock, I was so excited to talk to Judith. Sometimes I was so irritated that I was going to have to talk to Judith. It was almost like going to Weight Watchers, you know? I was going to have to fess up that maybe I hadn't had the most wonderful of weeks. Or even it was like going to the gym where I was like, oh, I don't have time for Judith today. I got real stuff I need to get done. And it was so funny to look back and realize how many times where Judith was insistent. She says, we're going to do this. Sometimes I'd change it an hour or two, and Judith would just hang in there with me, and we'd get on the phone or be in person. And I always had to laugh that there was so much resistance that I had from just showing up for the process. And it was just like going to the gym. After I got done and had 30 minutes with Judith, I was like, oh, life is so wonderful. I just love this. Oh, it works so well, until the next week, of course.
Well, this is what's so, I think it's so important as we're understanding this process, is that it's going to be uncomfortable. You're going to be looking at places that you don't want to see. You're going to be looking at things that you'd rather stay in the problem than in the solution. So I appreciate that.
Well, and I think that's a good feed into the third process step there, which is I surrender to the power of the mastermind to manifest good in my life, to lovingly and gently change me at depth for my highest good.
And I do have to always add that, you know, we had made up affirmations in a prosperity class, and we would say them every week. And one of them was, I am willing to be transformed at depth. Very much like this. I'm willing to be transformed at depth. And about the second class, there was a woman in the class that looked very pained. And I looked over, I said, are you okay? And she said, I'm reading this. Do we have to be transformed when we die? Does this say I'm willing to be transformed at death? I said, no, dear, it says depth. So, we want to make sure. I just always have to laugh at her. She said, I don't want to have to wait till I die. I said, no.
But I think, I think this example of surrendering, it sometimes in our culture, doesn't surrender sound like a bad thing? Aren't we supposed to just start out saying, we're never supposed to give up? Some things we are supposed to give up. We're supposed to give up those ways that we've been coping that we know aren't serving us. So there is this giving up, surrendering to this higher process that can be so powerful. And you know, just as I thought about so many weeks spent with Judith, that I had to surrender. I just believed that the way that I was doing it was the only way it was going to work, even though at that time my life wasn't working very well at all. So I had to surrender to the old way. I had to say, that's not working. I've got to be willing to try something new. And that's when I think of surrender, is we're surrendering our old ways that just ain't working very well sometimes.
Well, it's sort of like a nice nin, you know, the pain of staying in the bud becomes too much, and that the blossoming is going to happen. That there's this place of, I can't live like this anymore. And that's the power, again, of two or more coming together, because you get to see that, I'm sure you watched Judith grow, you watched yourself grow. I see that as the power of every group that I've ever facilitated, is that somebody comes back in saying, the phone call came at the perfect time, I had the perfect conversation, you know, my health is improving, and that through each other we get to believe that we are able to surrender, because that's probably one of the most challenging experiences, to go into the feeling like you're going into the complete unknown.
Yeah, I think that, and that is an opportunity. I think if we were all to think about those times in our lives when we've been with people who have inspired us, or those times in life when you've inspired others, isn't that awesome? Isn't it fantastic to be in that place where you can be an inspiration to somebody else? Or that you could have that opportunity to be inspired. I think, how wonderful is that? Who doesn't have 30 minutes a week to spend being inspired or inspiring others?
And obviously, to make these changes, you really, I know when I've never talked to anybody that said, yeah, my life is just a piece of cake, the whole life of it. You know, it's these times when you have released a resentment, or released, and for me it was letting go of a job that was so challenging. And so I had to surrender the idea that I had to stay, as my family had done, in a job that did not inspire me anymore, which, you know, seemed very unimportant to my family. It was like, you just stay in your job and, you know, you'll be happy when you're 65 or whatever. And that certainly, I had to surrender that belief, because that didn't fit for me. And it was the most terrifying thing I ever did. It's also been the best teaching I've ever, I mean, if I hadn't done that, I wouldn't have anything to teach or to inspire. It's these places where we get that the pain of this cannot be the way I live. That I must believe that this energy of feeling connected and alive is my birthright.
Well, I so relate to that, because I had the same issue with my mom and dad, particularly my mom, who had a real belief that if you just get married, everything will be all right. Well, it was all right. She met my dad when she was like 22, and he was an awesome guy, and they were married for 56 years, and she said, that, your daddy, he just carries me around on a silver platter. He was a wonderful man, and they had a wonderful marriage together. But in my mother's mind, that was it, that if you just get married, it'll be okay.
And so you carried that?
Oh,
yes,
yeah.
yes.
No, I didn't. I did more than carry that. I put that into action. Over and over and over again. Yeah, I had to find out the hard way that that's not necessarily true.
Right. And I would imagine that this is why I'm saying surrender really comes from this place of not, oh, I'm kind of not liking this belief anymore. It comes from this place of I believe, working with this one. I had the same one at 33. I got married truly only because I thought something was terribly wrong that I wasn't married. And of course, that is just, you know, and in fact, I remember when I did the class on calling in the one, I had people raise their hand about how many people got married because they felt something was wrong with them, or that they were pressured into it, or that, you know, religiously they needed to do it or something. And about 80% of the class raised their hand that they were really unsure the day they were married. And so we can see that the belief around relationship has been so, you know, skewed and unclear. So surrendering these stories, you know, is a very painful experience sometimes.
Indeed.
Expensive, all kinds of things. But
oh yeah,
anyway.
learned a lot. Let me just say that.
All right.